tear apart, Vincent cautioned. You might be a vampire lord, but that makes you powerful, not invincible. Even you should have limits. If you push them too hard, your current pain might just end up being a joke in comparison. Quinn could follow Vincent's logic, but he hadn't forgotten the system's quest. There appeared to be something beyond a vampire lord, and at least his system was convinced Quinn had a way to become whatever that was. Maybe that new form could hold the creator's body, or maybe pushing his body was the way to that next evolution. Agent 2 had been unable to get up on his own. The other pure agents had to pull him out. Their leader's skin was no longer red, as the fourth stage of Key seemed to have come to an end. Looking in front of him at the one who had appeared out of nowhere, he recognized the cursed faction leader. Agent 2's anger only grew at this. He touched his face, which was still hurting from the burns he had suffered. The one responsible for such an injury that would likely never heal was sitting in the distance peacefully, apparently helping Longblade recover. So, Pure is the only one to suffer a loss here? Agent 2 asked nobody in particular, as he placed his hand on one of his subordinates who had helped him out. The poor man held on to his superior's hand and begged the single-digit agent to let go. He could feel his energy being sucked out. He began visibly aging. His skin and muscles were losing their vitality, and his hair was whitening, until he eventually fell to the floor, his body lifeless, like a dried-out corpse. Before any of the pure agents could flee, Agent 2 grabbed onto the next one. You want me to win, right? Then this is the sacrifice we must make. Pure thanks you for your service. I shall make sure that you will be hailed as heroes back at the base, Agent 2 solemnly promised. Not everyone seemed too willing, but with each one consumed, their leader finished the process in a faster time. With the key of all of them, Agent 2 felt stronger than he had ever done before. If he were to make an estimate, his strength had at least doubled from his peak performance. It was a strange phenomenon, but with each heartbeat of Agent 2, everyone could feel the wave of energy leave him. This energy level is beyond Chris, but what is going on? Quinn thought. Agent 2's look of triumph had just as quickly changed to one of horror. Quinn was still in the middle of trying to balance his energy as he dispelled some of the excess ki that had spilled from his ki center and was now trying to allow the vampire energy to balance itself off like before. He was just about to finish, but he was now faced with this. Then something strange started to happen. Agent 2's eyes started to bulge, getting bigger by the second. His muscles started to go out of place, with his right arm becoming twice the size of his left. What is... Agent 2 needed a bit to understand what was happening, but once he finally became aware of the situation, he started to laugh maniacally. So that's why Zero told us to never use this. My body can't handle all of its energy. My only regret is not being able to enjoy this a little longer, but all of you will have to accompany me to hell, Agent 2 shouted. Sensing the energy inside, Quinn had an idea of what exactly was happening. This should be what Vincent meant when he warned him about going over his limit. The pure leader's body couldn't contain all of this ki, as he was a human at the end of the day. His attempt to go into the fourth stage had just made the situation exponentially worse, and all of that ki was about to explode. Quinn! Longblade shouted, no longer caring about keeping up appearances. The next second, his blade was being chucked over to the cursed faction leader, who instinctively grabbed onto it. But when he saw it was a sword, he wondered what exactly the man wanted him to do with it. However, as soon as he touched the sword, Quinn realized that his ki was gone. Quinn didn't feel as though the sword was draining his energy. Instead, no ki could be produced there, as if he had never been able to use the sword in the first place. Use it! Longblade screamed. Agent 2 had already ballooned up to almost twice his size. It was obvious that an explosion was imminent, so Quinn had to act fast. His shadows alone couldn't contain a blast at this magnitude. Using the shadow, he changed the armor on his body to the wolf set. Fortunately, the cooldown period was over. Activate skill. Nitro accelerate. With all his stats focusing on speed, there was no need to focus on skill. Quinn rushed forward and drew the blade. Using his speed and power, the weapon sliced through the balloon man like a knife through hot butter, and in doing so, the ki was being negated, yet it seemed to only affect the places the sword itself cut. Faster! Faster! I have to keep cutting him until all of the ki is gone. Quinn hyped himself up as he continued to slash at him as if he was carving out a pumpkin. The others watching couldn't believe what they were seeing. Heck, some couldn't even perceive what was happening. They just noticed the newcomer turn into a blur, and the bloated man started to disappear. Quinn continued to slice, not letting up, consuming every bit of key energy he could find, until eventually the time on his active skill for his armor set had run out. Now in front of him, there was practically nothing, but as Quinn turned around, huffing and puffing, his silver armor was now mostly scarlet, covered in the late Agent 2's blood. Seeing this sight, even in a world full of abilities, people who had superior powers and had learned of vampires felt like they were looking at some type of god of war. Quinn looked at the sword in his hand. He couldn't believe such a thing would have a skill to dispel ki. Huh? Quinn was surprised, curious as to what level the sword was at, and what its powers really were. Now that he had time, he used his inspect skill on it. Current questline active. Learning more about the Talon family. The sounds of alarms sounded out from the lab-like facility, informing the rest of the shelter that something was going on. Logan and the humanoid beast stood side by side, aware that their situation was getting worse by the second. The army still has a gripe with the cursed faction, so they will use this incident against us. I can't let them catch me on top of that, otherwise everything will be against us. Logan analyzed his situation. Although Logan's training meant he was more skilled than the average soldier now, getting out of a military place with countless ability users, especially without killing or injuring any of them too much, would pose quite the problem. He was just glad that the beast by his side seemed to agree that they had to work together. The first one to attack was one of the soldiers in the front, using his telekinesis ability to throw a heavy black ball, a beast weapon, towards the duo. Lifting up his Dalki arm, Logan easily grabbed the ball, stopping its rotation without breaking a sweat. Remember, you were the ones who attacked first without giving me any chance to explain myself, Logan stated, as he looked at his spiders that had been recording the whole situation. Everything I do now is just an act of self-defense. Taking a small step back and pivoting his other foot, he pitched the ball back at a speed faster than the telekinesis user had chucked it at them. At that moment, another soldier came forward, this one with a hardening ability that he used to intercept the ball. The force behind it made him